Okay. All right, Jen, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Hi, everybody. I appreciate you inviting me to your meeting. My name is Jen Connors. I work in communications and marketing at eWeb. I've been with the utility for about 23 years. I do a lot of work on resiliency projects and emergency preparedness. And about 2 years ago, I helped the utility launch the Pledge to Prepare program. And kind of the sub tagline there for the Pledge to Prepare is building a more resilient community. And I think that's a really important message to emphasize because when it comes to emergency preparedness and resiliency, it really does take many different levels and parts of the community working together. So for example, at the utility level, we have a responsibility to kind of harden our infrastructure, water and electric, have plans in place for restoring services in an outage or after a major disaster. And we do, and we're always improving on that. But even the most resilient electric and water system in the world, no winter storm or ice storm would take it out, for example, isn't going to do all of us as residents a whole lot of good if, for example, a wildfire rips through the community and we have to evacuate and we don't have plans for that. So it has to be the utility and the individuals working together. The other level of preparedness, so I always think of it kind of like a pyramid with individual preparedness at the bottom and kind of infrastructure, public agency preparedness at the top. And then at that middle level is the neighborhood level preparedness. And that's what I love about groups like what you guys are running, where you bring people from the community together and you talk about how can we help each other out. So another example is, say you and your household, you've done all the work, you've got your emergency kit, you've got your plans, you've got supplies, to be self-sufficient for a few weeks or even a few months. But what good does that do you if your neighbors haven't done the work, and there's an emergency and they're knocking on your door saying, hey, can you share your supplies with me? Or, they don't know how to shut off their gas and their house catches fire and burns your house down. So it takes all of these levels, the individual, the neighborhood, and the utility, the infrastructure level, all working together to really build a resilient community. The Pledge to Prepare is really focused on that individual household level. And we started this program because we recognized that it's hard work. It's hard work to get our homes and our families ready for an emergency. The recommendation is to be 2 weeks prepared, so to have food and water and other supplies to be self-sufficient for 2 weeks. And that's a lot of supplies. And if you do some research on, what should be in an emergency kit and what kinds of things should I do to prepare, it can be a little overwhelming. And we saw that as a barrier to folks really making significant progress in getting started and sticking with it and completing, the process to getting a full 2 weeks ready. So that's what the Pledge to Prepare is really focused on. And Jackie, I think you can go to the next slide. And the program really has 3 main components. The first is this annual calendar. And so basically what we've done is we've taken a full 2-week preparedness program and broken it down into small bite-sized steps that participants can do a little at a time. So whether you start in January or you start mid-year and make it kind of a rolling cycle, you can do just a few things at a time and really go from being not prepared at all in month 1 to being 2 weeks ready by month 12. So at the very basic level, any one of you or any other folks in your neighborhood could go to the eWeb website and download and print this calendar and just start ticking stuff off on your own without really joining the program. So You can do this work on your own at your own pace, and what your own budget, kind of whatever works for you. But the next level of the program, and you can go to the next slide, Jackie, is if you actually sign up to join the program, you basically are agreeing to get monthly emails from eWeb, and they look kind of like this. This is the one for the month of April, where at the very top, it lists from the calendar, these are the tasks and supplies that you want to try to focus on this month. And then in the email, there's always supplementary information or more resources or tips on those topics for the month. So for example, in April, one of the key items is to add a fire extinguisher to your kit. And you can see from the worksheet there that we provide some more information on tips on like putting your fire extinguisher out on your sidewalk if there's an earthquake, if you don't need it, so that neighbors can run by and use it and put out fires. You can see that we have information there about safely storing propane and other cooking fuels and what kind of fire extinguishers to look for. And then one of the tasks for April is to learn how to shut off your utilities. So we give you some supplementary information and instructions for how to do that. So when you sign up for the program, you'll start getting these monthly emails from us. And usually there's a mid-month reminder on, hey, a couple weeks left in the month to check off your tasks for the month. And then that brings me to the next level of the program on the next slide, which is we've kind of gamified it a little bit because we noticed that one of the other barriers for people in really completing a 2-week preparedness process is you kind of get sidetracked. Life gets in the way and you forget, or it's not really urgent. It's like, well, this emergency might happen or it might not. So you kind of like lose momentum. And so we've tried to add some incentives in to keep people on track and motivated. So once you're in the program, you can be entered into a monthly raffle drawing for cool and useful emergency preparedness prizes, such as those you see on your screen. So we give away things like water storage containers, emergency flashlights, emergency food supplies. And the way that you get entered into the raffle drawing each month is just to send in a photo to eWeb of what you did that month to advance your preparedness. So it could be a photo of your kit, or you and your kids out there learning how to shut off your water at the meter, or anything that shows, hey, I did the work this month, put me in the raffle drawing. And we've had, for the last 2 years that we've done the program, we've had a couple of people who have done every single month and sent in a photo every single month, which is kind of super exciting for me to see that level of stick-to-itiveness. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. The next slide just shows you how to sign up. We have a website, eweb.org/pledge. You go on there, there's a link that says, join the pledge. You just put in your name and email address. Then you'll start getting those emails. You send in photos if you want to be in the raffle drawing, and it's really as simple as that. And then the final slide just shows some examples of some of the photos that we've received and some of the feedback that we've heard from program participants. And I think the one in the top right kind of really sums it up and is the theme that we hear the most often, which is, breaking it down into these small steps really makes it less intimidating. It kind of makes it fun and a lot easier to get this work done. So that's what I have for you, and I'm happy to stick around and answer a few questions if you have them.
Yeah, this is awesome. I just signed up for this program last month, so I just got my first email this month. So I'm excited to get started because we have a lot of the items, but I don't know that we have them all organized like we should. So this is a good, easy to manage program. Like you said, it gets overwhelming if you think you have too many tasks to do. You won't do any of them. So I think that's a really really smart thing to do. Does anybody have any questions for Jen before we?
I do, Chelsea.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jen, I happened to yesterday have a plumber out to do some improvement on a outside spigot, and we had to shut down the control to the water for the house. And one of the things I learned in that process is that the box that the control for the water valve to the house is really undersized now that, I mean, this is decades old, I'm sure. And so I had to call eWeb at the urging of the plumber to see about getting a bigger box. And I wondered if you're getting more calls like that some of the older homes, the idea of this program is that in an emergency, I should be able to turn off my water myself. And if a plumber can't do it, I sure as heck can't do it either. Is eWeb paying attention to those kind of calls?
That's a great question, Charles Lee. I'm not the right person to know if that's a common thing or how frequently it happens.
Mhm.
I can tell you that we do have a rebate program for installing a hand valve on the customer side of the meter. And it sounds like maybe you have a valve, but your meter box is too small, or maybe it's too small to accommodate, the eWeb valve and the customer valve. Do you have a smart meter, a smart water meter?
I believe it's been swapped out. I really don't know. I mean, I don't know for a fact. There's an irrigation valve in there. There's the eWeb valve, and it's all squashed so tightly that, as I said, very competent plumber was having a hard time. It's not the first time it's been pointed out to me either. So I just am hoping that eWeb is really responsive because it will support what you're trying to do. Suppose
Yeah,
when
definitely.
they come out. Yeah.
I'd be happy to ask some follow-up questions with my colleagues on that. I know that, like, personally, my meter box, I have a smart meter, and I was able to use the eWeb program and get a hand valve installed on my side of the meter.
Right.
And the meter box for the smart meters are a little larger and they're more modern. So that, I think, might help a lot of folks who are older homes and have smaller meter boxes. But I haven't heard that before, so I'd like to do some checking and get back to you.
Yeah, I imagine in Eugene, this is going to come up again and again.
Jerry, I think you were next.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this last slide and I see this wonderful 55-gallon barrel. If you fill that with water, how often do you suggest that we replace the water in a barrel that's just being stagnant there?
The official recommendation for all of your stored water, whether it's in a barrel or the small 3-gallon containers, is to change it out twice a year. So there's a saying that some people use to help them remember. They do it during daylight savings time. So the saying is, change your clocks and check your stocks. So that's the time of year where you replace the batteries in your smoke detector, check your flashlight batteries, recycle your water, check your canned food to make sure that it hasn't expired. So that's the official recommendation. But I will also tell you that your water doesn't go bad. It can get contaminated, but it doesn't expire, so to speak. So if you've done a good job sterilizing your container, sealing it up real good, keeping it in a cool, dry place, and then you miss the 6-month time to refresh it, don't dump it and assume that you can't drink it, and that if there was an emergency. You always are going to want to treat your stored water before you drink it. And we have information, again, as part of the Pledge to Prepare program, and also on our website about how to treat your stored drinking water with bleach or through boiling and some other methods. So, you know, if, like I said, that's the official recommendation, and that's what you should try to do. But if you don't do it, it's going to be okay. You're going to treat the water before you drink it anyway.
Good
Thank-
question. John, do you have a question?
Yes, one of the hats I wear is as a director of the River Road Water District, which I suspect most of you, maybe even Jen, don't know exist. For those of you that are not citizens of Eugene, residents of Eugene, i.e. if you live in the county here in River Road, we're actually your provider of water, but we contract through EWEB. They bring you the water. They bill you, et cetera, which is why you don't know about us. But we are in the process of working with EWEB to have them replace your meters. So if your meter hasn't been replaced, it is going to be within the next year or two. And that may be when that
Great.
change happens, Charlesie.
Yeah, they're supposed to meet with me, and I'm getting that might be the case. Yes, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, John.
The other thing she needs to remember, Chelsea, is that you're required to have a backflow valve.
Okay. On what are you referring to now?
On your sprinkler system.
Oh, yes, I have that. That is a recent thing. Thank you.
And you have to pay to have it checked yearly.
That I did not know.
I think you can find some information about that on our eWeb website. If you want to, I could put the link to the chat. I don't know a lot about back valve or backflow, the program and what the requirements are, but we do have a website that talks about what backflow is, what the regulations are about it. And I think it has some links to request backflow testing on here. So I could put this link in the chat if it's helpful. I can figure out how to do that.
That would be great. One of the questions that has come, I'm a little concerned about storing foods in a garage that gets real hot during the summer. Is there any, I mean, do you recommend that food stuff be stored in a conditioned space?
I don't know if there's like a temperature at which it becomes unwise to store food, but certainly any space that gets, unreasonably hot or unreasonably cold is not great for storing your supplies, including your water. So it would be best to, try for a conditioned space. And I would also say that I always recommend storing your supplies in multiple locations. So I don't think it's a good idea to put everything in the garage, because in some emergencies, you may not be able to access your garage. So, keep some in there, keep some in the shed or the, coat closet or under the kitchen sink or in the bedroom, kind of spread them out. That's really the wisest strategy, is sort of a redundancy approach. But I would caution if you have a space that does get really hot or really cold, check on those supplies and maybe move them during those times of year if you can.
Mhm.
All right. Do we have any other questions for Jen before she has to run?
Mm.
Awesome.
Um, Well, I just wanted to say I'm really happy that eWeb's doing this program. It does put it in bite-sized pieces, and that really works. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank
this is
you.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Jen. And if any other questions come up from the recordings or anything, I will connect with you, and maybe we can connect once more before that other May meeting that you weren't able to make it to just talk about that presentation a little bit more. But appreciate you joining tonight, so thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot, Jackie. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Have
Jen.
a good
Bye-bye.
night.
You too. I did have a quick question for John. It looks like when you joined, you removed Andrew from the meeting and he's not able to join back. Do you know how
Oh,
to
my
fix that?
goodness. I was trying to change my name and I changed his, and when I tried to change it back, I think I removed him. What can I do?
I'm not sure. It says that he said he can't rejoin the meeting. So
Boy, I'm very sorry. I come to your first meeting and screw things up, or my first time to your meeting. So let me see what I can do.
that's all right. Yeah, he tried to join on the link and it says the host has removed you and you can't rejoin. So he's like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Try logging out and logging back in again.
How about if I log out and log
That's
back
what
in?
Yeah, that's what.
Okay. Let's see if that works. And Jackie, let me know when I come back, okay?
Okay.
I'll be gone for a couple of minutes.
All right. Let me let him know. Okay. All right, so let me check back to our agenda to see what is next. So up next, we are going to talk about the communications field day that is coming. We have a really small group tonight. Not a lot of people were able to make it. So I think everybody's apprised of the event, but Jerry and Matt, would you like to share some details on what you've put together so far?
You go first, Jerry.
Okay, so basically what we would like to do is actually have you practice really using your radios. We'll have some available to let you borrow some FRS radios. But if everybody would bring their FRS radios or their ham radios with them, that would really help, because the first part of the meeting, we're going to actually help you set up and get in the right frequency for the River Road area, as described under the band plans. Basically, we have kind of a scenario where we're going to spend the first 15 minutes just saying hello and get everybody checked in. Then we're going to spend the next half hour working with you on your radios. You'll come up one by one with your radios, and we'll have you make sure you have them on the right frequencies and that you've eliminated the tones. And then we're going to actually let you go out driving to figure out and get used to testing. We know it's supposed to last about 1 mile on an FRS, several miles on the GPRS. But either way, we want you to have a good feeling about what that feels like when you're actually away from the control central. And what we'll do is we'll turn around and we will give you a name, and we'll round robin and call you. We'll split it up between Matt and I. Then you'll come back to the parking lot. This is at the Grange on Irvington. And we're going to actually do an emergency drill and give you assignments and give you the paperwork that you're going to need. And then meet back around 11:45 and spend the last 15 minutes discussing what your feelings are, what worked, what didn't work. Anything you want to add, Matt?
That pretty well covered it.
Okay.
Yeah. Who's going to distribute the flyers and how? Are we going to do it by paper or do it electronically?
if you're asking me, we actually, Jackie and I yesterday actually discussed possibly doing this via Eventbrite.
I did get a chance to look into that today, and you actually have to pay to host an event on there. I think it was $2 a ticket that you have to pay, so that seems like an unnecessary cost, but
Yeah.
yeah. But as far as the flyers, I think we could print a couple of them, and I've seen a couple of bulletin boards around town. I know there's a bulletin board on the bike trail, I think at Hillcrest. And then there's one like up at our convenience store on North Park Market. There might be a couple others around town that we could post them at, but otherwise we could definitely share them electronically on social media. And then we'd like to share this announcement in the May ARCO general membership meeting as well about the event. Share that flyer, give an overview.
But
Yeah, John?
I can't, once I removed you, and I apologize profusely for doing so, the only way to let you back in is to end the meeting and restart it.
Oh, it's all right. I can hang out here.
Well, it's fortunate that you're there, and
Yeah.
I tried to change my name and I removed you. I apologize.
All good.
No
thanks.
worries. Ed, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so who's invited to this radio event?
well, of course, there are roles to be played by people who do not have a radio. For instance, just like in an emergency situation where you want to have one person taking notes and the other person actually doing the work, it's same with the radios, because one person's going to be involved taking the messages from the local area and transmitting those to the city. And those by FEMA requirements have to all be documented. Every message that goes through, every piece of equipment that gets lent and returned, that all there's forms, FEMA forms for the whole thing. So anybody can join us just for the wonderful time of practicing.
So Bethel neighborhood people.
Of course.
Okay. And should we you want me to publicize it?
So Bethel has a different set of frequencies
Mhm.
than does the River Road and Santa Clara area. But I assume that no one would be hurt by practicing this. I mean, it's something that people should be aware of. FEMA has kind of put their foot down about what they need in order to facilitate a hierarchical command center. Like they have a incident command center and then regional command centers and forms, and it's not done till the paperwork is done.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar with the ICE incident command system for sure. And with those little flimsy paper things.
Yeah.
But I think, so I've got some FRS radios and other people do, I think.
Great.
But I think the idea of just going to the Irving Grange and then just going off someplace and then talking back and forth, that seems like that transports to, that would work for people.
Yeah, well, what we want you to understand that while if you had a ham radio, we could probably talk between Matt's house and my house.
Right.
And Matt's over, what would that be called? South of the belt line.
Yep.
And I'm north of the belt line, where an FRS is not going to reach that. So there is what's called UHF frequency assigned to the neighborhood so that we can do that. In the perfect world, Ed, remember we had this map your neighborhood business?
Right.
Every one of those would be a localized center for emergency services. they would then call into a district area that would then talk to the ham radio operators who would talk to the city. So it's all a pyramid so that, you know, and then, of course, being that the district area also is going to need some sort of supervisor, such as you, who has the training and everything, to say, this is more important than that. Let's ask the city for an ambulance before we ask for yellow tape to block off the house that's just fallen down. So there has to be a lot of communications, and all this needs to be written down. And that's what we're aiming for. It's just a small little exercise, maybe just a massive earthquake, maybe a fire coming in. I mean, where I live up on Irvington and Northwest Expressway, I'm not worried too much about the fires that came down the hill, even as tragic as they were, down the Mackenzie, as I am if the grass fields start catching fire up by where they have the rodeo every year. I'm going to be in big danger. So we have to have priority and things like that. That's kind of what we're looking for.
And you're also going to display or talk about there's portable ham radios, I believe I've heard.
Yes,
There
there
Or
are.
handheld.
They're called HT, handheld transmitters. Like this one, I don't know if you can see it. And notice I've got a huge antenna on that.
Right.
It comes with a real short one, but this one allows me to get, so that we'll have these out there, and I'll show you how they're used.
Okay. Cool. Sounds great.
Yeah, so Ed, once we have that flyer finalized, we'll make sure to share that with you so that you can share that in your group as well, if you want something physical to be able to share.
Okay. That'd be great.
Yeah, Charlesy.
I wanted to ask for a point of clarification, Jerry. You indicated you brought up Map Your Neighborhood. So each neighborhood of say 15 to 20 houses would have a unique identifier?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, they would probably, because not everybody's going to have FRS. See, I think the Map Your Neighborhood area is better to use the FRS. You know, people running to different houses or stuff like that. But each one of those neighborhoods would have a runner that would end up at the district center. You know, where, so you've got a injured party because the house fell on them, or somebody bleeding that you need first aid immediately, and there's no cell service available because the towers all went down. That then would need to be transmitted to the district area, as Matt and I would be the district area, and we would send that out to the emergency services. Does that
Okay.
make sense to you?
yes, it is beginning to, but without a graph, I'm a visual person. I think a lot of people are.
Mhm.
And I haven't yet seen a graph. I haven't gone through any training, but I'm hoping at some point that there is a graph of what this design is meant to.
Just think of a hierarchical tree. It's very simple.
Well, it's simple when you know the terminology and you are familiar with it. But for people who have none of that background, it would help to have a visual.
Okay.
So I can get it for today, but at some point before the training, it would be helpful for people going into the training to know what we're aiming for and what some of the key, like the key levels, the runner, the district center, and then the emergency services and how they all connect and make so
Okay.
that
Okay. I was actually planning on that being one of the handouts when you got there. But if you'd like that earlier, perhaps Matt and I could get that done.
I think it would be helpful because some of us need to digest things in order to,
Okay.
it's hard with radios and handouts that day maybe to absorb it.
I have just written that down and it's on my to-do list.
Great.
So, and everybody knows this will be June 12th from 10 a.m. till noon. And more than likely it will last a little bit longer. And it will be at what's called the Irving Grange, which is actually on Irvington. Matt called me up going, "Oh my God, you have the wrong address." I said, "No, it is on Irvington if you don't know this Santa Clara area."
Can we use that field to the north of the parking lot at the Grange?
Well, I just found out right before this meeting that they're going to have a meeting inside the Grange going on at the same time, and they might use that for parking the cars. She mentioned something about we'll have them park in the other parking lot. What I don't know what that means. Why do you foresee needing that? We were going to have this just in the parking lot there.
Okay. I was just thinking it was kind of room to spread out in, but.
Well, we don't need to spread out until we're going to actually tell you to go away when we start looking at the distance. Have you feel what it's like when you lose your signal on the FRS? To give you an idea that it'd be wonderful if everybody could communicate with everybody. But that's the reason why they chose FRS, so that people from the Northeast aren't stomping on the people from the Northwest. And people from the Whitaker aren't stomping on people from Santa Clara. And we all have different frequencies.
Right.
That's the other reason that we're doing this exercise.
Jackie?
I have kind of a two-part question. The first part is, will you have the locations planned out that you're telling people to go to? So are you going to tell them to go down the street, or are you just going to let everybody pick where they're headed to?
Just go away and we'll keep on round robining. So I'll call Fred, can you copy? George, can you copy? And wait for a response and go away. So we just want you to get a feel of the distance. Matt, you had something you wanted to ask?
Somebody in the River Road Community Organization had a chart of it all neatly subdivided, the area.
Yep.
The River Road Community Organization itself was subdivided into a bunch of. Who has that?
I have a link to that map. Harry created that for us, but I have the link to it.
Yes,
Could you
please.
send it to both Matt and I, please?
Yep. And the second part of the question that I had was, what kind of accommodations would there be if somebody shows up who isn't able to drive or walk very far? Maybe they don't have a vehicle, or they might be in a wheelchair. How would we be able to include them in that?
I hadn't really thought of that.
And I just thought of it this moment, so maybe something to ponder.
I'm open to ideas from everybody. I assume that if they got there somehow, like I have a good friend who's really big in Sacramento. He's an architect. He's been in a wheelchair since college. And he's got a van. They can get in and out of the van and all that. So he's highly mobile. I don't know what to do. So please advise me. I'll take input from anybody on this.
I don't have any ideas off the top of my head at the moment, but it was something that I just thought of. If we're sending people away, what if they can't go away from that site? Charlie's going to be fresh out of hip surgery on that event, so she might.
Well, I held mine off, Charlie, so don't worry.
Pardon me?
I've held mine off till after this event.
Oh. Right, and I was avoiding fire season. That's why I planned it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be aware of being diversified and being able to support
Yeah.
people with different disabilities.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. All right, any other questions or anything anybody wants to share about the event?
Basically, this is a dress rehearsal. We'll have more events like this, a lot more.
So, yeah, so in, what is it, September, October, there's something called Shake the Nation or something like that.
Shake alert,
Say again?
shake alert.
Shake
Yeah, where everybody in the United States is going to have a field day.
Wow.
It's October.
Let me tell you, having lived through the San Francisco earthquake, it's quite an event when all of a sudden you feel like your car is no longer going straight.
I bet.
Ed, you looking it up? Is that
Looking.
Andy from Northeast has referenced it several times.
October 23rd.
Okay.
Is that the Great American Shakeout?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it's called.
That's what it is.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get some more information on that event and share that. Maybe organize some activities within the neighborhood leading up to that to support that day. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jerry and Matt, for sharing information on that. I think it's coming together nicely. I'm excited to get the word out on this. All right, up next in our agenda, we have room for announcements. I think at this point, most everybody knows everybody. I think John is our only newbie to the group. If you want to let everybody know who you are for anybody who doesn't know.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. I'm John Belcher. I'm co-chair of the Neighborhood Association, and I am so impressed with what you guys are doing. And I wish I could be here more often. And when I show up, hopefully I won't kick anybody else off. But I'll try to get to more meetings. You guys are really awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, this is a good group we got going. There's usually a bigger meeting tonight. These are the people who show up every week. So the troopers are here for sure.
I should say I've got another meeting at 6, so I will drop off then. It's not anything you guys did, if you're still going.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right. Are there any announcements that anybody has outside of anything that we've already covered? Any upcoming events that you want to share with the group? I think everybody here is pretty well connected via email, getting all the same notices.
Jackie, what I could mention about the Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition Steering Committee, just to let people know.
Yeah.
I've been attending weekly meetings of the organization. It's actually a committee off of the let's see, the Neighborhood Leaders Council, and it's called the Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition. They have a steering committee that meets every Friday morning, and I've been participating in that because I wanted to meet the people and also support the coalition that they're forming, which eventually would involve as many of the neighborhoods as wanted to participate in terms of getting the neighborhoods prepared for wildfires, et cetera. And it's a very, very lengthy process to pull that off, of course. But they're getting a couple of grants, it looks like, in order to target for an initial pilot, the Southeast neighborhood area, for identifying properties, private properties, where there's a need for cleanup to reduce the wildfire fuel. And eventually that kind of an effort could be done anywhere where there's a need. But they're starting off there and going to identify hopefully 100 properties to start off with. And there would be monies to do assessments and to actually do some cleaning of those properties. So including getting tools to lend out, et cetera. I don't have much more details than that, but they're starting to do the outreach. They've developed a couple of excellent wildfire films, which I know Jackie's aware of locally. And that's about it. I just wanted you to know that there's someone from this committee that's networking with them.
Awesome. Charlesie, that is a perfect segue into your chart here that you've created. So
Okay.
I'm going to share another document. Okay. So as we, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, so as we have learned about the various groups around town that are focused on emergency preparedness, we've come in Charlesie and I have come in contact with a lot of them. We've heard about a lot of them, and there's a lot of different names that get thrown around. So we wanted to try to get organized about who all these people were, to see if we could identify what they might be responsible for versus what we might be responsible for, to minimize any duplication of efforts, and to figure out who our resources are that we could reach out to in various forms. So this isn't necessarily a hierarchy chart by any means. It doesn't mean that anybody reports up to different people. It really is just a list of the major preparedness partners that we've identified so far. And we'll send this chart out I can send this out to the group too, so you have it to look at. And if there's any corrections that anybody sees that needs to be made, or you see new groups that we're missing, certainly let us know. But this is just a reference that we've put together to try and see how we all fit in together. So
is it possible, Jackie, to make it a bit smaller so that the whole of the chart, the bottom part is kind of chopped off? Yeah, that's a little better.
Yep, let me see if I can upload this in the chat as well, in case anybody wants to download it. Instead of looking at my screen, give me 1 second. Desktop. This is called, there we go. Okay, so I just posted this file in the chat as well, in case anybody wants to open it instead of looking at on my screen.
Okay.
So the top left section that we have here is the Eugene Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement, also called the HRNI. And we believe that the Neighborhood Leadership Council, the NLC, falls within that umbrella. And then underneath the Neighborhood Leadership Council, we have that Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition, which Charlesie was just mentioning that she's participating in. And then there's also a Eugene Neighborhoods Preparedness Network, or NPEN, as they're calling themselves. I think we're still learning information about this organization. I think they're rather new and still getting up and running, but I think their intention is to coordinate with the different neighborhood organizations that exist to talk about emergency preparedness. As far as under that umbrella, we move over to the neighborhoods with emergency preparation efforts that we're aware of. So we know we have the River Road Community Organization and our emergency preparedness team. We know that there is a Santa Clara Community Organization. They do not have a dedicated emergency preparedness team created yet. But I know we have several residents in the Santa Clara area that attend our meetings. So I imagine, yep, we got Jerry there. I know Kat Tanzer is another person up there. I know there's an interest in getting a dedicated team created. So I think we'll end up working very closely together if they do ever create a dedicated team. We have the Whitaker Community Council. We have the Active Bethel Citizens. Those three organizations, we don't think they have dedicated teams, but they are in our area. And then the Friendly Area Neighbors and the Southeast Neighbors. These two neighborhood organizations are miles ahead of us with the work that they've put into their emergency preparedness. They have a lot of information that they've documented. They have done a lot of planning and execution. So we hope to be able to use some of their resources and repurpose them for our own neighborhood. Any questions so far? Anything anybody wants to add? Yeah, Ed.
Oh, just that Bethel has an emergency preparedness committee and I'm the head of it, and then I'm on the board of directors of Bethel.
Okay.
Do you, Ed, do you have a name for that committee, or, because I'll add it and add your name as a contact.
Emergency preparedness committee, I guess.
Okay,
It's part of public safety.
Okay.
thank you.
And also, Jackie,
Yeah.
I know that the Lane County Sheriff has something called, as part of SAR, Search and Rescue, as the Lane County Sheriff's Amateur Radio Organization that also is something that's used during emergencies.
Okay.
And they actually have a web page and everything.
Okay, got some notes down on that. So outside of the HRNI office and the neighborhoods with the emergency preparation efforts, we have the CERT organization, so the Community Emergency Response Team, which is headed by Andy Davis. And then we have our CERT district leaders, which we have Ed here. He is our Northwest CERT leader. And then Andy Davis, Thomas Price, and Carlos Barrera, they lead some of the other districts as well. So the CERT, I don't believe that I think they report to Eugene Emergency Management, kind of roll up in that area. So that's why they're in their own little bubble here. They don't actually manage anything that's going on with the neighborhood preparedness groups, but they are definitely a big partner in this effort. Outside of those, at the bottom here, we have just kind of other resources that we know about. So other city and county resources like Eugene Springfield Fire, Lane County Sheriff, Eugene Police Department, the Lane County Emergency Management Office, and then the Lane County Community Organizations Active in Disaster, or COAD. So those are some separate entities. And then the bottom section that we have down here with the green boxes are noting local River Road neighborhood resources and partners. So this could be anybody from our emergency communications groups, local businesses, local schools, local churches, first aid and medical facilities, nonprofits, any partner in the community that could potentially be helpful in the event of an emergency. This is just kind of general categories of what those people might fall into.
Yeah, I sort of see it as when we originally did this chart, we were trying to find every entity under the sun and do it in a kind of hierarchical way. And the feedback we got right away from some other neighborhood partners was, maybe you should back off of the hierarchy and focus sort of on your own immediate area of focus. And I thought that was really good advice because in fact, a lot of those other entities that we originally were identifying might not even come into play in a real life local emergency. So by creating something that was more circular, it helped us get away from the hierarchy and to focus on what might we need most if there were a major earthquake or a major fire and so on. And honestly, maybe, this is going to change a lot as we get to know things better, but we started to brainstorm, what about the businesses locally? What about if we were cut off from healthcare in the greater area, but landlocked into the River Road area? Would we have a relationship set up with medical personnel that may already be here or facilities that may already be here? And so maybe we need to do outreach when we can catch our breath to develop some better alliances, some strong alliances there. And that's what these little green boxes down at the bottom started to reflect. And also they reflect our priorities that we told our board, for the ARCO board, were areas that we were going to focus on. So there are things that will be developed and starting to give us a sense of what our community is to us if we're facing an actual emergency and need to reach out more locally. And there undoubtedly are many more. So if you look at this list and can think of things that we really need to remind ourselves to develop further, please let us know.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Just, Jackie, I sent you a link to the City of Eugene Emergency Management Plan or Emergency Operations Plan.
Yes.
And I just glanced at it before I sent it, but it's pretty general. And I think that like what Charles is talking about is how I think the neighborhoods really do have a part to play in stuff that like Charles was talking about is what to do. I mean, if we have a disaster, it's like really cold for 2 days or something, then pretty much everything's going to go back to normal pretty quick. But if we are cut off from the world for a month or 6 months or something, then it'll be really different. And what Charles is talking about is that's the kind of thing that is not included in the city emergency plan. And, that it could be, thrown together, there could be, I mean, if, I'm talking about the Cascadia earthquake, it's pretty likely that we'll be pretty cut off for about 6 months before they get a road to us. And in that situation, then, access to medical care and all that other stuff is going to be completely up in the air. And plus, we're not going to be able to get around very well. It's going to be hard to cross the river. And it's just going to be it'll be pretty difficult to get around and to do stuff. And what Charles is talking about is really important to do, to organize now and to keep updated and so I think it's great that you're even thinking about that, because I don't think anybody else is.
I would hope our plan does focus on that, and that I think Jackie's, we've had a bit of this conversation to start reaching out to those people that physically are here and maybe make that our priority, along with learning the CERT program. Map Your Neighborhood is essential in getting to know who's here. And all the tools, the radio connections, etc. But yeah, I've only lived here a little over a year, and I'm getting how landlocked we could become so fast in an earthquake, especially. And then we are going to need to find, hopefully we will have already identified those things that we need most to keep going.
Absolutely. That link that you sent me, Ed. So this is the Eugene Springfield multi-jurisdictional plan, emergency plan, and I kind of skimmed through some of it. It's over 100 pages, so I definitely haven't read most of it. But I didn't see anything mentioned about neighborhoods either. It talks about county support and city support and some of that higher level support, but they're not really accounting for the neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street emergencies within this. So that kind of leads into the next item.
Let me just say, Jackie, the word neighborhood does not appear in that document. If you
Yes,
do a Control-Alt-Delete or Control-F search, it doesn't come up.
exactly. So that leads us to, let me see which screen I'm sharing. So can you guys see the brown and green internet window?
Yes.
Okay. So the Southeast Eugene neighbors have written a neighborhood emergency plan for themselves. And I believe the friendly area neighbors have also written a plan. I didn't see it published online, but I think they have one. And the Southeast neighbors one, they actually have theirs published online. I linked to it in the agenda and I'll link to it in the notes as well. But it is a smaller plan. It's about 41 pages and it identifies specific hazards and risks and potential problems within their local neighborhood, which will be different for every different neighborhood depending on where you're living. Southeast neighbors is going to be different slightly than what we have up here in the River Road area. But they have offered this plan up for anybody who wants to use it and tailor it to their own specifications. So that's very exciting. We don't have to start from scratch. We have a template that we can start from. And that is one of the goals of this team, is to write an emergency plan for the River Road neighborhood. So I think this meeting would be a great start to see who is interested in working on something like that. Charlesy, yes, definitely. I think it would be important to have representation from the whole Northwest District. So River Road, Bethel, Santa Clara, we all are going to face very similar risks and hazards to one another, and we're all very closely connected. So I think it would be good to have representation from all of those neighborhoods in creating this plan.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So are you going to post that URL?
Oh yeah, let me post it in the chat too, so it's there.
Jackie,
Yes.
let me say that the Eugene Emergency Operations Plan has a good section on the hazards, the potential hazards, and which are like the earthquake areas of stronger shaking and weaker shaking are shown on a map, color key map, and the landslide risk and flood zones, and
Awesome.
just there's a lot of the just kind of natural hazards are shown graphically and with colored maps in the Eugene plan.
Awesome. That's a really good starting point. That's good to have.
Yes, one of my concerns that I just don't know yet. I know I've been told that the fire department, the Eugene Springfield Fire, is the entity in charge of evacuations, and this is just a real hot button for me because I had to evacuate when I lived in Paradise, and when the fires happened here late last summer, that was the first thing that came to mind is, oh my God, how do I get out of here if I have to? And there was such a dearth of information, so little information publicly being shared. There was really almost every way out, maybe every way out was blocked by another fire. But it really makes me squirm to even talk about the possibility of us not knowing more what our options are. And I don't know that I don't know that we can rely on or wait for hearing from the fire department. I mean, I would like us to have our own thoughts on that matter, because again, we may be isolated, we may be mostly shut off, or maybe entirely. And so those are the kinds of things that out of firsthand experience, I want to figure out for myself and for my neighborhood. It was interesting, one of the first documents I picked up when we were starting this committee was something put out by the state, and in a box to the side, it said, "So who's going to save you?" And the answer was, "You and your neighbor." And it was so refreshing to have a state document, a bona fide emergency preparedness document, say that. And I think that's just the reality.
Just as an aside, does anybody know how earthquake proof the bridge over River Road is at Beltline?
The what? Oh, Beltline?
Yeah, Beltline and River Road, that bridge. I can see that going down real quick.
There's part of the, well, can I answer that?
Mhm.
So just, so all these, many of the bridges are not earthquake resistant. But the state has a plan to rehabilitate, it's called retrofit the bridges. And they're doing that. And like, so I'm trying to think, the one, like the bridge that they're building right now on near Division Avenue, I think, where that goes over Beltline. I think that's a new bridge. So that's probably going to be earthquake resistant. And then like they recently did some work on the bridge over the Willamette River on that Franklin Boulevard goes over, I think. And I mean, so I think the city has probably a list, or the state has a list of the bridges that are being repaired, but it's gonna, I mean, it's like a 20-year list or something, but.
That was the big thing they found out. And remember, they had the LA earthquake, and then weeks later had the San Francisco earthquake in '89. And the big thing that they found out, everybody had all been building bridges to withstand this kind of movement. And that's not what it was. It was this lateral movement that really took everything out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's definitely a concern. I mean, and so there's possible that there'll be at least one bridge that'll get to Springfield, but I don't know, and all that can be determined. I mean, that can be researched out and figured out which bridges will stand and which won't, I think.
So Ed, I know in California, they have a 5-year STIP plan, it's called, where all the projects are spelled out for the next 5 years. And I'm wondering if there must be something similar for that bridge rehabilitation. It would be really nice to know where our various Eugene bridges fall on that plan or that projected timeline. And I think the neighborhood associations should be able to get that ideally from our elected officials or from.
Yeah, I think it's like a 20 or 30-year plan, or maybe a 50-year plan. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
it's I think, yeah, and I mean, I'm sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure that the city would give that up. But but the thing about the earthquake is that some of the places, there's some places that'll probably have more damage than others. And so that's starting to be political, because then would you want to buy a house in a place that the earthquake is gonna just really shake hard compared to a place that's not gonna shake hard? And so that kind of information, the city might be less likely to give out. And I noticed that when I looked at the city emergency plan and the maps, like the maps that I could get from the internet, from the city website, a lot of them said like map of earthquake shaking risk, parentheses, public. So it was like the public version of the map. And
That's a clue.
and honestly, I'm just assuming that that's a public and keep it private kind of situation,
The
but
press
maybe
and
it's some legitimate, some other reason for that little
Yeah.
thing. But just, but so I think when we think as a neighborhood organization, when we start asking questions that could be, that have economic economic
Consequences, yeah.
consequences, then
Yeah.
we would run into resistance.
Of course,
Awesome.
I'm sure that you're right. And I think that's one of the reasons we want to build up the strength of the neighborhoods to be at the table, if you will, to be perceived as invaluable partners to the other entities that are normally higher up in that hierarchy, to really be seen as essential.
Yeah.
And that it will take maybe some time, but yeah, we definitely are entitled to that information.
Hello, this is Catherine. I came in late. Hello, all.
I
Hello.
I remember patients mentioning once that the city of Eugene has a bridge that they can put across the river in 48 hours. And it's one of those compact that expands kind of thing. I don't know. She was just getting it. I don't know where it is or if it's deployed, but that is one item of information lurking around. The other question I had was, when we're with the plan, which looked really good, by the way, wow, department, have we talked to this Peace Health Santa Clara, and then this little medical group up here near the U-Haul, and also the veterinarians? That if the medical, do we need to contact them and get them in the loop?
All good points.
Yeah, really good points. We have not contacted anybody as of this time, but they're definitely listed on that chart: local businesses, medical providers, pet care, veterinarians. I think that would be definitely a goal for this team, to reach out to our local business partners and find out, how can you get involved? We have a lot of businesses that have really large areas that could be used either as a medical triage facility or as shelters in the event of an emergency. So I think getting businesses involved is definitely something we should look at doing. But no, we haven't. I don't think anybody's done that at this point.
Right.
Oh, I should also say that in 1990, there was the building codes for new houses included earthquake, like attaching the house, bolting the house to the foundation, which is an earthquake damage preventive measure. But so pretty much from 1990 on, houses built from 1990 and to the future should be bolted to their houses and therefore less likely to completely fall apart in an earthquake. But then the ones that are before 1990 probably will fall apart, or could fall, are more likely to fall apart. And then like Peace Health, the hospital, I was out there not long ago, and you can see in the parking garage where the parking garage is bolted to the foundation. There's like just steel things, that are bolted down. And so I think that building, since 1990, it's probably pretty safe. But then places like PLC, the camp on the University of Oregon campus, is like a 10 or 12 story building. I'm pretty sure it was built before 1990. And it, that's like a pancake, where it just the floors just collapse on each other. I said that, I think that's possible. So anyway, so there's that kind of stuff about buildings in the town.
I think
I'm a major in geology.
it's quite an eye opener. On the bridge, the bridge that can be built in 48 hours, that just is mind boggling. And I think Jackie and I have talked about maybe getting patients at some point to come talk to us or I'm not sure. It seems like we had that conversation, Jackie, and you indicated, of course, she's very busy, but yeah, to get that, that would be a wonderful thing to follow up on, just to know.
I think we need to buy inflatable rowboats and keep them. I'm serious. I already
That's
did buy
true.
one.
Yeah, they have kayaks now that you can, that you fold up to a suitcase size.
Yeah, that's important. So Andrew works from home now, but he used to work across the river, and we talked about him storing a raft in his desk or in his car in case, something happened while he was at work and he needed to get back across the river to come over here.
Yeah, even just those river runners that everybody floats down the river with in the summer. If you kept a couple of those in your car or in your garage or at your work desk, you can at least get back across the river to reconvene with your family or your group at least. It might not be the
Dog.
best. It's at least a way to forage the river.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? What boat?
Yeah, if you just go to Bi-Mart or anything in the summer or
Like
Friday.
a little surfboard kind of thing?
It's like a raft with like a seat in the middle.
Yeah,
like
kind
a
of
tube.
like if you were at the water park and it was a water slide or lazy river, they sell those tubes for like 20 bucks a piece, 25 bucks a piece. And they're made by Intex. They're really good quality, come with patch kits, but at least you could get across the river in a shallow spot, or there's a lot of slow spots between Springfield and the Beltline. So it's at least an option to get yourself back across the river if need be.
Well, maybe we need to add that to our list of suggested items then.
And where the slow spots are.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a map that somebody created on Google Maps. I'll have to see if we can find it, but somebody mapped out the entire Willamette River from Eugene, Springfield, all the way up to Portland, with like hot spots and good places to pull out and danger zones. But yeah, there's like a whole 100-mile river map that somebody created on Google. So I'll see if we can find that, because that at least kind of gives you some information about the river.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And those were inflatable boats that you're talking about, something you just keep in your car? Or is it an actual sort of thing?
Yeah, these ones are just like tubes, just circular tubes. They're probably 3 feet in diameter.
You would definitely get wet.
Yeah, you would get wet for
I care about that.
But you can blow it up by your mouth if you wanted to. Otherwise,
Oh, I'm talking about
you get
it.
a little Intex pump. They have this dual action pump. It's a black cylinder and it inflates on the depress and the pull up. So it kind of doubles the inflation. And those are like 20 bucks down over at Bi-Mart also. So throw 2 tubes and a little Intex pump in your trunk of your car, and at least wherever you are, you'd be at least able to get across.
The other thing I see is I need to get something that attaches to the bike, like the homeless, so that you can take your water bottles down to the river and then bike home again. If we're talking 6 months and you need water, you're going to have to get it out of the river. And then how do you get the things home again? So one of those little homeless child attachments onto a bicycle.
So, those things typically, if you buy a new one from like REI, they're over $100. What I did a couple of years ago is I found somebody that was giving one away for free on Craigslist or Facebook because it was torn, it had stains on it, what have you. And I pulled all the fabric off of it and just got the frame, the chassis with the wheels on it. And I ended up just making a wood platform out of an old pallet on top of it. And then I just screwed a bucket, like a Rubbermaid container on top of it, and I hooked it up to my bike. I've gone to pick up dinner with it before and get groceries, and yeah, so I just found one on Craigslist for free, and I just kind of made it work for myself. Bought some new tires off Amazon, and had a whole setup for like $30.
Lots of DIYs. I posted that too, but that we were talking about in the chat, so you could see what we were talking about.
They definitely go on sale. Also, that's a pretty expensive.
That's expensive one. Yeah.
Weimar usually runs a sale towards the beginning of summer.
All right. Let's see. So as far as the neighborhood plan goes, so the River Road, Santa Clara neighborhood plan, Northwest District, would anybody raise their hand if they're interested in working on it? Charlesy, me, kinda, okay. Totally fine. I understand not everybody loves documentation. So what I'd like to do is just share the word that we are wanting to get that up and running. So maybe Ed, in the next CERT meeting that you have, if you might, I can send you a blurb of what we're asking for, but in case anybody's interested in joining that little work party that we'd like to put together. Sorry, the sun is blinding us right now. Maybe in the CERT meeting. And then I'd also like to make an announcement in the May general membership ARCO meeting too, to see if any other neighborhoods or any other neighbors are interested in contributing to that. Even if it's just writing to us to let us know, hey, I know of this hazard that's right on my block that we might not know about. You know, this crooked tree that's gonna fall on everybody or something like that. Yeah, Jerry.
So I just came up with an idea. I'm sorry, it's a little bit off of what you're saying, but I get a letter twice a year from eWeb. And I'm wondering if some of our announcements couldn't go in there. If they could target different areas.
I wonder if they can. Do you happen to have one of those emails you could forward me?
I do not. No, it goes through snail mail. It comes in your mailbox.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen any of those, but maybe next time you see one come through, or maybe I can ask Jen if she knows anything about that, the lady who was here earlier this evening.
Twice a year, they come in your mailbox, you know. The other one is, and then I don't know whether you get it down on River Road, but I know in Santa Clara, the fire department sends stuff out a couple times a year.
I don't think I've seen anything.
I've never seen that.
I was just thinking announcements of things ARCO is doing. Those might be good places to get people who don't know we exist.
Is Santa Clara part of the county
Yes,
and River Road's part of the city?
I think that's pretty much how it works.
I think we have
So,
more county
across
and
the
city.
street from me,
It goes street by street.
yeah,
I think River Road is predominantly county, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
right
this,
across the street from me is city, and I'm in the county.
right, well, I'm just thinking the city fire department might send one thing and then the county fire department might send something else.
Yeah, I think our fire department isn't it technically like the River Road Reclamation Water District or something? I think, yeah, we're not like really under a,
Oh, John,
Quote-unquote.
when John kicked you out, he's actually on the chair. He's on that board.
oh, I
of
missed that information.
organization.
Yeah.
So we'll follow up with him about that.
Yeah, so maybe John would know something about that portion then.
I'm sorry, I had to step away. Were you talking about the fire department? My understanding is the fire department now is Eugene Springfield. Does that mean that there's a separate fire department for the county or aside from the incorporated cities?
I believe so.
Wow. So
mean,
that should be,
Isn't it, I think, oh, I'm trying to think, some like north on River Road, there's a place, I can't remember, but there's a fire station on the west side of the road, which I think is it's the, I don't know, the Eastern Lane Fire Prevention District or something like that. I can't remember.
So there's one on Irvington, and right around the corner, there's one on River Road.
By
That's
that bus
crazy.
station. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you all have the, what's it called? The, darn it, the Pulse Point app?
I do, but I don't know if I have anything set up for it. I've never gotten a notification or anything.
It covers Eugene, Springfield. I've got it set up for Junction City. I've got it for Lane Fire Authority and Lane Fire North Battalion. So I don't, it's not gonna show up. There it is.
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
But it's Pulse Point and it's an app, and it, one of the fire people of Eugene turned me on to this, so it's a real deal. And Matt, you know about this, right? The Pulse Point. Anyway, let me show you. And it's that little red thing over here on the. And it lists fires, it lists, everything that they're doing pretty much. And then, the train collision shows up eventually, and they show up eventually, but they're pretty good. It's a pretty good little app.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good
Called
one.
Pulse. It's red with a white heart.
Okay. I'll send that out in the meeting notes too, so everybody gets that. Awesome. All right. Well, we are 1 minute away from time. So I think we will adjourn for this evening. A lot of really good notes tonight, a lot of really good ideas and follow-ups. I'll send an email out about that, starting this emergency plan write-up kind of work group, and we can schedule some time to get together for whoever's interested in that. But otherwise, I think we'll all talk soon.
Sorry, I was late. Nice to see you. Jerry, I have a question for you.
The answer's 42.